Ahir, Guardian of Malor, Chapter 4, Captain Ember. Ahir ran down the sidewalk, Barbo perched on his shoulder. Is she still following us? Barbo tightened his grip on Ahir's shoulder.
Yes, Miss Emeliuson is still within visual range of our persons.
What is it going to take to lose her? I'll duck down this alley up here. Maybe if we go to the rooftops.
I must advise against performing numerous additional maneuvers. Our target is yet distant, and the longer we delay, the more probable that our enemy will draw attention to himself and cause untold destruction.
Ahir sighed. Barbo, when are you going to learn that no one on this side of the portals understands you when you talk that way? You don't need to try and impress anyone. You are a talking monkey. That's already impressive enough.
You are a buffoon, sir, but very well. We don't have much time to waste. Our enemy is still far away, and the longer we take to get there, the longer he has to be seen and cause some destruction. Was that clear enough for you?
Ahir frowned and started running faster. Yeah, I understand well enough. Maybe we can catch a bus downtown or something.
I think that it would end up taking longer to get there that way, and Miss Emeliuson would definitely catch up with us.
You have a point, buddy. Running it is. Thaddeus walked down the crowded street, oblivious to the people walking past him on either side, engrossed in reading this month's issue of the Captain Ember comic. He had 20 minutes left in his lunch break, just enough time to either make it back to Mr. Grover's antique shop or to read his new comic book, and he had decided to do both. He was also oblivious to the people following him. Two youths in gray hooded sweatshirts that had followed Thaddeus from the comic book store after they had gotten a glimpse of what was inside his wallet. Thaddeus traveled a couple more blocks before the two youths came up behind him, grabbed him by the arms, and guided him into an alley. Thaddeus struggled to get away from the two of them and said, "Hey, what's going on? You two had better let me go." One of them smiled before saying, "Don't worry, we will let you go, as soon as you give us your wallet." Thaddeus stopped struggling. My wallet? Why would you want that? I don't have much money, only a couple of dollars. The other mugger laughed and threw Thaddeus to the ground, sending his comic book flying.
We know that you are lying. We saw what you got for that old The Cleaner comic. Now hand it over.
He reached out his hand to take Thaddeus' wallet. Thaddeus looked from the mugger's hand to his issue of Captain Ember lying on the floor of the dirty alleyway, the cover facing up. It seemed to him that Captain Ember's confident smile was encouraging him to stand up for himself. If I appear confident, maybe that will scare these guys away and make them think twice about messing with me. Thaddeus knocked the mugger's extended hand away and rose to his feet. I will not give you my wallet, scum. If you know what's good for you, you will leave now before I decide to teach you a lesson. One of the muggers formed a fist and snickered. No, I'm afraid that you are the one that's going to learn a lesson. You aren't some comic book superhero, and you should do what your betters tell you to do. The mugger punched Thaddeus in the face and sent him sprawling back onto the ground. On the way down, he hit his head on a garbage can and knocked it over. The two muggers started kicking Thaddeus in the head and in his ribs, all the while Thaddeus moaning and screaming in pain. People kept walking past the mouth of the alley, ignoring Thaddeus' cries as if nothing were happening. Finally, the muggers stopped kicking him, and one of them reached into Thaddeus' pocket, took out his wallet, and opened it up. Score! He has over $1,500 in here! Who would have thought that nerds like this guy would be worth targeting? Maybe we should go back to the comic book shop and see who else we can find. Good idea, but before we go, I want to give our friend here one last message. The mugger bent over and picked up Thaddeus' fallen comic book. Maybe if you spent more time in a gym and less time daydreaming about superheroes, you could have stopped us. I'm about to do you a favor. The mugger ripped the comic book in half and threw the two pieces at Thaddeus' head. They started laughing and heading out of the alley. Thaddeus, one eye swollen shut, slowly and painfully reached out his hand toward the two retreating thugs, a tear sliding down his cheek. A spark danced away from his outstretched hand, joined by another and another, until a gout of flame shot away from his hand and consumed the two muggers. The muggers screamed out for a second, then they dropped to the ground, burned to ash. The heat of the fire cracked the bricks of the building on either side of the alley, and just as suddenly as the fire had appeared, it was gone. Thaddeus stared at his hand in amazement as tiny flames danced between his fingertips. The fire surged again, this time forming into a flame cyclone around Thaddeus' body. Thaddeus cried out in terror and realized he wasn't being burned. In fact, wherever the flames touched his body, his bruises disappeared, and he even felt his cracked ribs heal up. Thaddeus stood in the middle of the cyclone and held his hands out. Flames descended onto his outstretched arms and spread until it was covering him from head to toe, the flame changing from fire into fabric wherever it landed, changing between red and orange depending on how the light caught it, to make it appear he was wearing an outfit crafted from flames. An orange mask covering him from the forehead down to his neck formed on his head, with a hole cut out for his eyes, his nose, and his mouth. His hair was replaced with living flames, and a cape of fire burst to life behind him. Thaddeus looked down at himself in wonder. The flames surrounding him disappeared.
I look just like Captain Ember. He must have seen me take a stand for justice and decided to make me his avatar in this world.
A smile crossed Thaddeus' face, and he held his hand up, forming a fireball in it.
Time to clean these streets up and make sure punks like that don't bother any innocents ever again.
Thaddeus walked out of the alley and onto the sidewalk. People started screaming and running away, and several cars ran into each other, and one or two actually swerved into buildings.
Do not fear, citizens, for it is I, Captain Ember, and I am here to protect this city and you from evil. Now where should I start?
Thaddeus' eyes glowed with an inner fire. Ahir's feet pounded down the sidewalk, and he gasped for breath. Please tell me we're getting close, Barbo. Barbo glanced behind him and frowned.
We are getting closer, as makes obvious logical sense, but it is still somewhat distant. More importantly, I'm impressed by Miss Emilianson's endurance. She is actually catching up with you, Ahir. You really need to work out more.
I do acrobatics for a living. Forgive me for not regularly practicing sprinting across the city. All things considered, I'm in pretty good shape. I bet you wouldn't still be running it if it was you doing all this work.
An Ever's Verum can run all day without getting tired. You humans are so weak and fragile compared to us. The fact that beings such as ourselves need to ask a being such as you for help is embarrassing.
Barbo frowned.
The portal has closed.
Ahir stopped running. What? Are you sure? What does that mean?
Yes, I am certain. I've a ward cast on my person that alerts me to the location of all portals opened in whatever dimension I am in. I do not sense the existence of any portals here. I can only assume that Lane Khan pulled whoever he sent back through and closed the portal. I can't imagine what that reason would be, but it's the only explanation that makes any sense.
Ahir started running down the sidewalk again. Just to be safe, I still want to check it out. Not that I don't trust your senses, but this just could be just a new way for them to try and trick us. Someone reached out and grabbed Ahir's arm. Ahir turned to see who it was that had grabbed him and groaned. Trixie let go of Ahir's arm, frowned, and crossed her arms beneath her breasts.
I caught you, Ahir. You promised to let me help you with these monsters. Why didn't you wait for me?
Barbo peeked around from behind Ahir's head and raised up his hand.
Forgive me, miss, but my people are not monsters.
Trixie angrily replied,
The only other one of you that I have seen sure looks like a monster to me, and that's not what's important right now.
The anger on Trixie's face was replaced with a hurt look.
Why didn't you wait for me?
I am the only one that can hurt the monsters. Ahir raised his hand to stop Barbo, who was about to start talking again. Not the time, Barbo. The sword that I carry is the only thing that can kill these things, and I am the only one who can wield it. If in anyone else's hand, it's not even sharp. All you could do is be a distraction for me, or get hurt. Trixie frowned again.
That's not your decision to make. It's mine. I could help distract them for you, or make sure that no one else sees you. There are all kinds of things I can do to help you. You don't have to do this alone, Ahir.
I don't do this alone. Barbo is my partner, and at least I don't have to worry about him getting hurt.
The way I see it, you have two choices. You can honor your promise to me and let me help you, or I can go and tell the police what you are involved in. The choice is yours.
Ahir groaned in frustration. Ugh. Why do you want to help so much? Trixie blushed before answering.
This is my home, too. I want to help protect it.
Ahir sighed. Fine, you can help. I will do everything in my power to make sure you don't get hurt, but I can't make any promises. The portal that Barbo sensed appears to have closed. We are on our way to check it out and make sure that nothing is up. You are welcome to join us if you want. Ahir turned and started jogging down the sidewalk once again, and Trixie joined him. They jogged for another 15 minutes, and finally Barbo told them that they had reached the spot. Ahir doubled over, breathing deeply, and Trixie was breathing hard as well.
You wouldn't happen to have a car, would you, Trixie? That would sure help out our cause.
Trixie giggled.
Sorry, Ahir, but I usually just take the bus. Doesn't look like the monster is here anymore, though.
Ahir turned and surveyed the scene, and it did appear that it was just an empty parking lot between two buildings. You're right, Trixie, but you should stay here with Barbo while I go and check it out a little bit more. It wouldn't be the first time they tried to ambush me. Ahir put his pack down on the ground and pulled out his sword. Barbo jumped off his shoulder and onto Ahir's pack. Ahir slowly walked across the parking lot, looking left and right, watching for any movement. Suddenly, a thud sounded from behind him, and Ahir turned quickly to see what it was. He looked left and right and saw a concrete parking stop sitting on top of a dumpster, and looked to the top of the brick building the dumpster was up against, and saw that the rooftops were empty. Did either of you see who threw that? Barbo crossed the lot and jumped up onto the dumpster.
I was carefully monitoring the surrounding area and failed to witness any persons other than ourselves.
Ahir opened his mouth, and Barbo raised his hand to stop him.
No, I didn't see anyone else, and I was watching for them. What could have possibly happened here?
I don't know, but we have a long trip back home. Maybe we can catch a bus this time. Let's go.